us what we all represent, which is a loyalty and a consistency and a strong work ethic and a focus on mission, and she doesn't lose that focus. And in times when we ourselves need to be strong managers of our natural resources, natural gas, coal, timber, ourselves, we need to have that kind of leadership. And so what we have today is an opportunity to listen, and she will listen to us, and share that path forward. This is a good conference, and it's a wonderful discussion of where we go locally, regionally, and nationally with our energy resources and our manufacturing sector and development. So with that, Shelly brings to us her position in D.C., where she serves on the Appropriations Committee, the Energy and Natural Resource Committee, the Environment and Public Works Committee, and the Rules Administration Committees. These are remarkable positions and leadership that she provides to us in West Virginia. So with that, please join me in welcoming our good Senator, Shelly Capito.
Well, that was a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Kathy. My good friend Kathy, who I've known for a long time, both personally and professionally. So thank you for that. Thank you all for the warm welcome here this morning and the opportunity to speak, to kick off what I think is a very important conference. And I'm really flattered to be your first speaker of the day. I want to begin by talking about something just quickly that I think is on all of our minds, and that's the situation that happened in Belgium just yesterday. I don't know about you, but I woke up yesterday morning. I won't admit that the first thing I look at is my telephone, but it's kind of close. Oh, after I looked lovingly at my husband, I forgot about that. I looked at my phone, and you get the alerts, the news alerts, and it said, explosions in the airport there. I mean, my heart just sank. It just rips you apart, even though you don't know anybody personally, maybe, but you start to read the stories that are coming out today. The mother of the twin 3-year-old girls and the family that was traveling together. It's just heart-wrenching. And I'm going to say something that really steamed me off this morning. I was watching one of the news shows, and one of the commentators was talking about the difficulty assimilating Muslims into certain parts of Europe and how they feel, this particular group was feeling disenfranchised and they don't have job opportunities, and we need to, equalize their opportunities. It kind of aggravated me because I thought, is the other option, because you can't find a job and you're not getting assimilated, to go into an airport and blow up innocent victims? I just don't think so. There's something radicalization there that has occurred and hateful that is driving this. It's, lack of opportunity is one thing, and that's something we can fix and work on. But this radicalization that we see across the world is deeply troubling. So we need to double down on our resources and our intelligence and our ability to disrupt and our ability to see. And all of us have to play a part in that. The old, if you see something, say something. We've got to remember that, particularly when we're traveling. I know we're getting ready to kick off a holiday weekend. Many of us are going to be traveling. Some of us are probably going to be traveling abroad. And I know that it'll have that little pit in your heart when you go out to the airports, and some of these major airports or mass transit areas. You're going to think about it. And so that, I think, is a call to action for all of us. I'm going to talk mostly about energy and the opportunities that I see, but I wanted to just talk about three bills three actually, that have moved through the Senate. And Dan, thank you for the thanks on the, I teased him when I came in. I said, we passed the highway bill, because every time I see him, it's like, pass a damn long highway bill, would you? We did it, and so he gets up here and he goes, well, there's more she can do. I'm like, it's never enough for you, Dan. But we did pass the 5-year highway bill, and I do think, and I know that it will have great impact here in West Virginia and across the country. The other thing we've been working on is it's called TSCA. It's the chemical substance bill. Steve can tell you, coming out of Barron and working in the chemical industry, it has been decades since we revamped the toxic substance chemical safety bill. We are in the middle of almost having a conference here. It's going to be a landmark piece of legislation. It's it's going to create certainty for our chemical industry that they don't have right now, and it's going to greatly, I think, improve safety around hazardous chemicals and other chemicals. That has special meaning here, I think, in the Kanawha Valley after what we lived through over the last several years. We're also going to be reauthorizing the WRDA bill, which is the Water Resource Development, which is all of our dams and our locks, and that's important for our water transportation, but it's a lot of jobs because it's a lot of construction, and it gives, again, the certainty that we need. So we have, even in these polarizing times, we have pulled together in a bipartisan way to meet some of these challenges. And all three of these, I think, are job-creating pieces of legislation. They're all three bipartisan. Dean can tell you the TSCA bill actually has Ed Markey on it, so hold your breath on that one. But anyway, so I really wanted to talk about what I think is a very critical time in our state. And there are fewer people who know more about the energy and the infrastructure issues than people sitting here today. You're our job creators, you're our job expanders, you're in the industries and businesses that are related to the energy resources we see in our state. And you are the heart of our manufacturing sector. So Rebecca, thank you for leading our manufacturers in what has been some, I think, difficult times at certain. But as you well know, as we talk about the Marcellus Shale development, you all remember that I'm a child of the Northern Panhandle, so I've gotten to see this firsthand as a former residents of Marshall County. But between the Marcellus and the Utica Shale, we've seen just major increases since 2012, and our production has quadrupled over from 2008 to 2014. Well, what we got to do is capitalize on this abundance and reap the economic benefits. Unfortunately, what we've seen with the squeeze of oil and gas prices, particularly natural gas prices, squeezing down and getting to almost unbearably low areas in certain points, this downturn, I think, the way I look at it is every time you're in a downturn, it presents an opportunity. It gives us that opportunity to step back, take a breath. What can we do now? Because we know the resource is still going to be there. What can we do now to maximize that resource for the future? I had an energy roundtable that I hosted in Wheeling, and it was as roundtables are, they're very instructive if the person leading the roundtable will not talk the whole time and take the time to listen, and that's what I did. And one of the things that we talked about, we talked about the state of the industry and the successful path that we want to go on, and one of the first things we talked about was the need for a skilled workforce. We had a student who was transitioning from one type of job and wanted to move into welding and into the possibility of working in the natural gas field. And now is the time, I think, for our education and training to sort of catch up to where we need to be so that we here in West Virginia can seize that opportunity. West Virginia Northern Community College in Pierpont have Career and Technical Center. They have Career and Technical College have joined together in what I think is a great partnership, because in many times we can't do this alone. These two institutions are leading the way, listening to their students, listening to their professors, so that we can reap the benefits of a trained workforce, attract new and young workers into these fields, so that when we're ready to, when the industry catches back up and the price goes back up, which we know it will eventually, don't we know that? Then again, we'll be able to seize that opportunity. I'm working on legislation to help mid-career workers be able to be some of the instructors in these areas. I'm on a bill that would say if you're a welder, a professional welder, been in the business for a very long time, that you could move into the education field and begin to teach our students these skills without having to jump through all of the hoops of becoming, a registered and certified teacher. I think that also one of the things, secondly, I would say that we are vastly underserved by is our pipeline capacity. The resource is there, as we've said, and we know, but we need to put the infrastructure in place that will allow for this natural gas to reach our manufacturers, to capitalize on it. And we also need it within our region. We don't need it, we're hearing about these very lengthy pipelines that are moving to the south or moving to the east. Those are critically important. They're difficult to site, and we're seeing this. But we also need the pipeline infrastructure in and around the tri-state area to be able to feel that organic growth that we want so much from this blessing of a natural gas boom in certain areas of the state. It can add downstream jobs right there, but it also can add construction jobs, a lot of union jobs in the pipeline business, to be able to get West Virginians working again. I learned from Eagle Manufacturing. I don't know if Joe Eddy here. There he is. Thank you for allowing one of your guys to come in and participate. But we learned from Eagle, and by the way, they were just named one of the top 50 brands in the United States. Let's give them a round of applause for that. But what he impressed upon me was that if we keep the resource, build the pipelines in and around the regional area, a place like Eagle Manufacturing can have is much more likely to grow and expand. It's going to be less expensive for him to get that energy source. He's going to be able to grow and expand his business right there in the northern panhandle, and that's what we want to see. In order to do that, come to the federal. What role am I playing in all this? We need to have a more efficient permitting process. It takes years. I see some nodding heads. It takes years to permit these pipelines, and that's money and time, and it leads to delayed construction and more expense. We need the price stability and certain pipeline permitting processes to be predictable. But I want you to know that I've been working on this one all the time. We have another bill that I'm going to talk about through my talk, call it the energy bill. In that energy bill, in the energy committee, I was able to get a part of that in there to sort of ease the permitting process, not to skate by or eliminate any of the environmental regulations, but just to have it make more sense, to make it more time efficient, to have timelines, to make sure that FERC is the principal agency in charge. You've got all these other Fish and Wildlife and all the other agencies around. Let's make sure that FERC is the one, love it or not, make sure that it's the one that's the principal decision maker. And that's what my addition to this bill does. It makes sense. And that's what we need, is common sense. Another area that I've been extremely intrigued about is this idea of an ethane storage facility in the Appalachian region. We've begun to explore. I've heard Steve talk about it down when we did the manufacturers roundtable down at the Greenbrier. Or the chemical. Was it the chemical or the manufacturers? I think anyway. Everybody was there in the chemical industry was talking about the need for the idea of an Appalachian storage basin. And I think, this is what we have to do. We have to think out of the box. We got to be innovative. We can't have somebody pat us on the head and say, that's too expensive. We already have one of those. There's one in Canada. There's one in Louisiana. We don't need another one. We've never seen this kind of resource before in our country, particularly in our region. And so at my urging, the Department of Energy has been tasked to study this innovative idea. I just traveled to Alaska with Secretary of the Energy, Ernie Moniz, and I used that time to badger him to make sure that he understands that this is a project that I think is worthy of consideration. And he assured me that the department is looking into this, and they should be generating a report, hopefully a favorable report, shortly this spring. So that, to me, is what we need to start doing, thinking outside the box. Take that breath. We've got that time to think. Let's try to think what's worked other places, recreate it here where the resource is. And the other thing I think we need to do is make sure we're coordinating our resources, both at the state level and in the private sector, to make sure that we're all moving in the same direction. On the state level, I think one of the best things that we have developing is this tri-state partnership between Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. That just brings an economy of scale that we need. And I think it will help us move forward. It's a good step forward because regionalism will give us those new opportunities, and it will be enhanced cooperation to keep and grow that opportunity in and around these three areas. I think we sort of get hung up sometimes in West Virginia that if it's not located in West Virginia, it can't be good for West Virginia. And I think that's not the case. We need to think if it's good for the region, it's good for our state. And we see, the development of possible cracker in Parkersburg, and I think there's real active talk and land development occurring right across the river from Moundsville over in Ohio. There's a lot of excitement, I think, around that development, and certainly I share that excitement. On the national level, one of the things I keep talking about, and I will keep talking about as long as I'm there and probably after, is a good common sense, all of the above energy policy. I'm on the Environment and Public Works Committee. It's a tough sell sometimes because we have very diverse. Sometimes I wonder, where do these people live? Well, I know where they live. They live in Massachusetts. They live in Rhode Island. They live in New York. We just have a different, very different viewpoint on the best direction and the best way to go. But the energy legislation that I talked about, it's bipartisan. It came out of committee 18-4, 2 Democrats voting against and 2 Republicans voting against. That's a good harbinger. It's held up right now over the Flint, Michigan water crisis, but that is just, it's sort of tagged on there to make sure that we, and quite honestly, I'm in favor of us helping Flint, Michigan, and other municipal water sources around the country. If it happens there, we know it can happen here. We know it can happen anywhere. Let's make sure that our children are getting clean drinking water. Don't we live in a developed society? I mean, just it's horrifying to think you would take your child to the doctor and have inordinately high levels of lead in their blood, which can have such an effect on their brain and brain development. So the Flint, Michigan thing is something that I'm interested in, although I'd like to see it separated from the energy bill. But we need to make sure that we move this energy bill, because I think it will give us not only some good innovation, but it also helps us with our permitting, as I mentioned. It has LNG on there. It has a lot of conservation and making sure that we're being efficient with our energy uses as well. I am all for exporting liquefied natural gas. I've been consistent on that all the way through. I think it's a job creator for us. I think it's an energy security issue for us, and it gives us an opportunity to work with our allies in Europe and in Japan to be able to strengthen those relationships and provide them energy sources from a friendly country, our country. So we are now, I think the first LNG just went out of the South Terminal, 2 or 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. And I'm excited about the prospect of what that can do for us here in West Virginia. And I'm going to continue to support that. I was just in Beckley, or no, I wasn't. I was just in Bluefield and in Pineville. And I can't talk about the development of natural gas without talking about coal in West Virginia. It's heartbreaking. We were in Webster County, too. The last coal miner in Webster County will lose his job in 2 weeks in April. There will be no more coal in Webster County. Wyoming County has been severely hit. Bluefield, severely hit not just with coal, but with the downturn of Norfolk Southern, the hundreds of jobs that have left there. But you know what? There's such a spirit of entrepreneurship and opportunity. I went out to see a guy who just developed a remote control lawnmower and snow shovel and development of micro ideas and manufacturing. So we're not giving up, and they're not giving up. But they've been really, I think, are right at the tip of the spear in what I would characterize as the president's war on coal. We've lost 10,000 jobs since 2009. Now, I'm not going to get political today, believe it or not, but I won't name any names. However, I will say that one of the presidential candidates recently talked about coal miners losing their jobs and coal companies going out of business. And then she said, no more fossil fuels. Who's she talking about? She's talking about us. She's talking about everybody in this room, whether you're coal or natural gas. And so that, I think, has a chilling effect for our future as well. And that's why we got to fight harder, work harder, be more regional, be more innovative, think more out of the box. So we faced a really uphill battle with our coal, and you all, I hope, know the fight that I've been forging. And this is a bipartisan, certainly working with Senator Manchin on this and all of our other representatives and those regions most hard hit by this. It's just disappointing to see, and it's hard to explain. Well, it's inexplicable, really. When you're in southern West Virginia, I know many of you have friends and businesses there. Certainly, if you're in the industrial business, you've suffered some of the downturn in that industry as well. To try to find the solution, property values are dropping, schools are gone, the students are gone, the state's in I have in here $400 million in the hole, but I'm not sure we really know how much. And it is having just a ripple effect all throughout our state. And it's very, very difficult. So I'm all for research and technology. We've got it right here at our universities. We've got the National Energy Technology Lab in Morgantown, where we're supporting cutting-edge technology. I'm not going to give up on this. There's a future, I believe, in coal, a great future. And once we find that utilization factor for carbon, whether it's through enhanced oil recovery or other methods, there's going to be, I think the stabilization in coal will occur. It'll never come back to where it was, we know that. But I think we need to be friends with everybody in the energy industry, because what's good for one part of the state is good for every part of the state. And I think that's sort of the attitude that we have and the attitude that we should have. So for me, energy is a priority. You can tell by my committees I'm well placed to make those decisions and to weigh in on that. A modern energy policy recognizes both coal and natural gas and renewables and whatever is out there in the future. Our energy needs aren't going down. They're not going to go down. And we've got, as I said, the opportunity to take that breath and find where we can meet that. So I am really, really honored to be in the United States Senate. You might have heard me say, a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between being in the House and being in the Senate, since I was in the House for 14 years? And this is how my analogy for that. You know how when you're in junior high and it's your last year in junior high and you get all nervous because you're going to high school and you're thinking, I don't want to go to high school. I don't know the building. I don't know the teachers. I don't have the friends. I'm really, there's going to be new people there, new processes. I'm really nervous about going to high school. That's kind of what I was thinking going to the Senate, even though I was really anxious to get there. So I get to the Senate, and it's the same thing when I got to the high school from junior high. I turned around, I looked at my old junior high, and I said, see ya. So being in the Senate is great. It's a much more deliberative, personal body. It's more relationship-driven. We work a lot across the aisle. We have a lot of partisanship as well, but I just actually got into one of the mental health bills an amendment that Senator Elizabeth Warren, Shelly Capito, Elizabeth Warren. I mean, we are on two different planets sometimes, most of the time. But on this one, it was about overprescribing for pain medicines, and we were able to join together. So there's a lot of that goes on. So keep the faith. I know the election years are always tough. They're tough. I'm very glad I'm not running this year, so I can observe from a little bit from afar and hopefully have some influence as well. And I know many of you know how important an election can be, particularly when we have a presidential election up. So we'll all be watching, and I think we've all been watching that, and if we haven't been watching that, we've been forced to watch it because it's all over the TV. It has been, seems like, for years. But I'm going to propose a challenge kind of based around the items that I think are really important for our future. One is to develop new ideas and new technologies and spark that next generation of advanced manufacturing so that Eagle manufacturing can grow, so that your manufacturing facilities can become advanced manufacturing, so that our young people can innovate and create those opportunities. Let's look for those opportunities to have public-private partnerships. It can't all be done on the public dollar. We just talked about the state budget going down. We know it's tight times for the federal budget. It's basically flat. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. We've got an $18 trillion debt, and we got to get a hold of it. We can't keep spending. We've reined in our spending, but we've got other systemic issues that we've got to deal with. Those mostly being Social Security and Medicare are really going to bust our budget. And we've got to invest in a workforce that gives our workers and the next generation of West Virginians the opportunity. I'm concerned about our next generation being a mother of about that age group. We got a lot of young people leaving. They're looking for other opportunities. They don't want to leave in a lot of cases, but they have to find those opportunities to raise a family and move on and capitalize on their education and their desire to achieve. And so that's why I think finding new partnerships, developing a workforce, being innovative and creative, thinking outside the box, that's why I think that we can create jobs, grow our economy, draw young people in, hopefully keep our young people here so that the next generations of West Virginians can capitalize on the energy resources that we've been blessed with, that we know how to use, and that we use our technology and brain power and innovation to really keep that wealth and prosperity growth right where we live. So thank you all very much for having me. Enjoy it. We're going to go out and see the expo. And I have time for questions. Yes. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, I think part of it, one of the big things is the expense. I mean, I don't know what the cost estimates are, but it's in the billions of dollars. Cost is an issue. I think making a case for why you can't access this resource in a storage facility that's already located somewhere